Disclaimer: I do not own, nor did I write any of the stories being displayed in this video today. All credit goes down to the creators of each story. Hello YouTube, and welcome to tonight's story. I'll be your host, Sinister Central 666, and this is going to be a compilation of two micropastas. I hope you enjoy. The first micropasta I'll be reading is I Remember. So let's begin. I remember the house from my childhood. I remember it being my uncle's. I remember the rather odd fashion the house lied in, ruins. And I remember my father telling me not to talk to my uncle, that he was a poor role model. I never saw my uncle after that, and I don't know why. I recall these things as I arrive on the decrepit, burned down property. As I close the car door behind me, undergrowth in the forest behind me rustles intensely in the evening breeze. Unsettled by the ambient and eerie atmosphere, I swiftly walk up to the ruined house, stepping up on the creaky steps. The floorboards let out deep croaks under my weight. As I take steps towards the door, the top floor of the house was awfully barren, an eerie breeze floating a lofty autumn breeze, carrying with it an unpleasant musty smell. The radiance of sunset beams on the horizon as evening bridges border to the night time. I decide to get going before night comes about and begin walking to the door. As I step towards the door, I trip over a lip in the floorboards. I turn as I realise there to be a basement. I tear open the basement floorboard, hinged on a rusty silver hinge next to a wall, creaking nastily. I step down the groaning steps and immediately receive a foul surge of the odour from before, which appears to be wafting from a small chest at the end of a long, damp, stony hallway. I notice the dark of night has fully consumed the cabin, and I turn on my cell phone's flashlight. The cobbled walkway shifts as my boots push down my weight onto them. As I reach the chest, the odious scent seems to have gotten close enough to taste. As I unlatch the chest's lock and open it, what lies within almost makes me vomit. The decomposing corpse of a young lady, a rib cage ripped clean open, organs missing, her skin tone pale and grey. Her body has been crudely compacted into a tight ball, as her body could never fit into such a small chest. The rustling from the forest sure seemed to get closer. I feel a warm and heavy breathing on the back of my neck, causing the hairs of my arms to stand on end. I reel back and begin to turn, catching the silhouette of a massive, burly man carrying an unidentifiable object. I can't focus on the figure for long, as the latch on the basement door clicks, and it swings shut with one final resounding slam. Now, I remember why my father told me to stay away. Story number 2. Mirror. I wouldn't say I'm a narcissist, but I have learned how to appreciate my looks, take care of myself, and keep up my looks. I'm not going to have them forever after all. My friends would agree that I have a habit of always looking at my reflection. I was about 21 when this happened. It was my birthday, and my older friends took me out to dinner. I had drinks in my teen years, but once I knew I was legal age, my dumb ass got drunk. I felt my bladder tighten as I finished another bottle of beer. I groaned at the feeling and excused myself to the restroom. I stumbled to the bathroom and quickly did what I went there for. As I passed the row of mirrors over the sinks, I frowned as I saw my reflection looking less than neat. I grabbed some paper towels before turning on the water to wash off my ruined makeup. I bent down to splash the cold water onto my face. As I stood up, as I stood straight up, I gasped as I saw my reflection grinning at me before turning and stepping closer to the door. I backed away and rubbed my eyes, only to reopen them, seeing my normal reflection. My breathing slowed down as I observed the mirror and I grinned, shaking my head as I left the bathroom, drawing the reflection up to being just my imagination. Later that night, I was cuddled deep into the blankets on my bed as I tried to nurse my headache from my earlier party. I looked over to the mirror on my closet door. At first, all I saw was my reflection laying down and covered by the blankets. As I started to drift off to sleep, my reflection slowly sat up and walked to the bathroom, which was directly across from the closet mirror. I felt my tiredness seep away as I saw this happen, and quickly sat up before running to the bathroom, absolutely psyched out at this point. I sucked in a breath as I flicked on the light, looking around the bathroom until I saw her. My reflection, I mean, in the mirror again. I covered my mouth to silence my screams. There was a man standing behind me. In my reflection, a knife deep embedded into her throat. I felt hot tears run down my cheeks as I saw this, but my eyes grew wide as I felt breathing on the back of my head and something cold, hard hitting my throat. And time for a bonus micropasta. Micropasta number 3. A warning about silence. Everyone, regardless of their particular mental state, has a curious kind of background noise in their minds. When that noise takes the form of original music, we call it being a genius. When it sounds like voices, we tend to call it schizophrenia. A single voice is often referred to as religion. Most people go through their entire lives without ever being consciously aware of this omnipresent aural phenomenon. Save for in those rare moments when it catches their attention. Perhaps they think they've heard their name being called, or that they've been listening to their air rushing through the vents in their house. One way or another though, the noise is there. You can hear it if you listen for it. Lie down in a quiet room and focus on clearing your mind. Mute your internal monologue, erase the scenes from your imagination, and let yourself sink into the silence. Before long, the whispers of that hidden soundtrack will become evident, then grow louder as you learn to recognize them. It could be that you'll find answers to questions you didn't even know you were asking, or perhaps discover a sense of inner peace that's been lacking in your life. Some folks refer to this as meditation, even if they're mistaken about what's really going on. The truth, you see, is much less comforting. If you've ever gone walking in the woods, you've likely encountered a cacophony of noises. The songs of birds, the chirping of insects, and the quiet rustles of small animals rushing through the undergrowth become so commonplace that our minds tend to tune them out. What we notice, though, is what happens when a predator draws near. The chorus abruptly stops. The forest becomes deathly still. A person walking amidst that sudden silence might feel the hairs on the back of their neck start to rise, and notice their heart pounding with a mixture of adrenaline and dread. When you listen to the sounds in your mind, it doesn't matter what form they take. What matters is that you can hear them. That's all. As long as that clamour is present, you know that you're safe. All is well, even in the most tumultuous of times. The danger arises when the noise seems to stop. When you suddenly experience the most potent silence that you have ever encountered. In that moment, you may start to feel as though you are being watched. After all, in that still forest, the predator is the quietest of them all. Try it yourself if you'd like. When next you are completely alone, imagine you are listening to a sound of some kind. When that sound seems to stop, you'll know that you've been noticed. Thank you guys for tuning in to this series of micropastors. Whatever you do, do not watch these alone.